Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Today's guest is Heather Belle Murphy, a health, life and love coach, and our topic is What I Learned from Love. Welcome to the show, Heather, and tell me, what did you learn from love?
Lots of great stuff, Kirsty. I've been in loving relationships for a long time now, including some pretty significant ones. My biggest skill that I've learned, that I think I can say that I've learned, over my past sort of 35 years of actual adulthood, is emotional balance. What I see with clients, and I've actually come from an experience of being somebody who was highly oversensitive at one stage, suffered with, anxiety, depression, those sorts of things. And being emotionally balanced no longer means that I'm on that seesaw emotional roller coaster of being, when I'm up, and everything's great. When I'm down, I'm down. And when I'm down, I would need to do something to get up, to escape that uncomfortable, bumpy feeling. So, for women, that commonly looks like doing things like eating the wrong things, overconsumption of food, having unhealthy relationships with things like TV or alcohol, or even just developing unhealthy relationships with things like, I shouldn't say things, but, we'd say their children, for example, where they're just overly living out a life through someone else. So that sense of being in our beingness and being in balance is a really important thing. The other really important thing is whether we're in a relationship, intimate other, with the person of the opposite sex, or even an intimate relationship with same sex, and even if that is with a sister or another relative, say, for example, someone is most likely to carry the masculine energy in the relationship, and someone is most likely to carry the feminine energy in the relationship. Now, the issue with that is that, especially if it comes to being in a relationship with your significant other, men are going to feel much more comfortable expressing their feelings, or another great expression for it is crashing the boat of their heart on your island and wanting to stay with you if you're really emotionally comfortable. Particularly if you're emotionally comfortable, during bumpy, potentially volatile times. So that's a really important thing.
Could you please explain a little more about masculine and feminine energy for us?
I'd love to, especially as we know that there's a lot of gender and role confusion going on in society at the moment. So clients commonly come to me, and there can be a confusion in their relationship, especially where some girls now may be in a situation where or some women may be in a situation where they're earning more than their partner. Or you might have a same-sex couple where one person is, significantly, obviously, the breadwinner in the household. What I'm finding in relationships now, sometimes in same-sex couples, generally with women, or in heterosexual couples, it's like two people are both trying to wear the pants in the one household, and that doesn't work. So being the masculine, sometimes people mistake carrying the masculine energy in the relationship as being controlling or dominating, and that's not actually where it's at. It's actually more of a protective role. You'll often get one person is more of the protector. Now, in my relationship, it is definitely my partner. He fits that male protector, breadwinner figure particularly well, and I'm definitely much more the nurturer. He's nurturing as well, but of course it's part of that dance that we do. He nurtures me in other ways, but I tend to definitely be the feminine energy, the nurturing, the receiver. I'm definitely the feminine receptor in the relationship.
And have you got any tips for our viewers?
Absolutely. Emotional balance is essential. I call it emotional landscaping with clients and emotional processing. And you know, we're very, very lucky that as women, being in touch with lunar cycle, because we're 60% water, it's a great time to follow the phases of the moon, being in dark moon or being in full moon, when we know that it's time to, so cleaning the house and cleaning out the shoe cupboard and being organised at that time, it's a great time to utilise that energy doing those kinds of things. And then being in full moon, that's more of a doing time. So that's the time when you can, you know, a great time to be more into exercising or to be into making changes and fulfilling change, whether that is changing your direction in your career and having a plan around that, or changing, you know, your eating regimen, for example, upscaling it or whatever, you know, or, you know, you might change your physical regimen. How am I going to exercise? How is that going to change? So full moon is a great time, more of a doing energy, compared to dark moon is much more of a time for planning, cleansing.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. That was wonderful. If anyone wants any more information on Heather Belle Murphy or on what she learnt from love, please look up her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break with another fantastic guest and a very interesting story. Stay tuned. After the break, animal communicator and therapist Caroline Pope talks animal communication and breaking down the barriers. Welcome back. Now we have Caroline Pope in the studio, and she is an animal communicator and therapist, and we're going to be discussing animal communication, overcoming barriers. Hi Caroline, welcome.
Hey.
Now I wanted to ask, if are different human languages a barrier to animal communication? So if you were working on communicating with an animal that wasn't from an English-speaking country, how does that affect things?
Providing the person on the other end can also speak English as a second language, it's not an issue, because the animal doesn't speak a language per se. They use telepathics. So telepathics doesn't have a language. The biggest problem I actually find with my international people is simply some of the accents I can struggle a little bit to understand, and apparently I have a very broad Aussie accent and very few can understand me. That seems to be the biggest barrier.
So it's a human issue, not an animal issue.
It's a human issue, not an animal issue.
How does it work? How do you communicate with animals?
For those of you that have seen The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, great trilogy, think of the babble fish. For those that haven't, the babble fish was something that you put in your ear and it'd swim around and it would simultaneously translate any language right throughout the universe. And essentially that's what happens, because it's all about thought. If you're, say, a diplomat and you want to say something to someone who only speaks Russian and someone who only speaks Dutch, the thought pattern's the same, what you want to say might be the same, but the languages are different. So the animal's thought pattern, to me, is always going to be the same. It just happens that I only speak English, therefore I need another English-speaking person on the other end of the phone. The animal doesn't have a language per se. It's all telepathics, it's all energetic thought.
How does the difference between species affect animal communication?
Hugely. That's the biggest job of any animal communicator, is advocating for species difference. You're not going to roll in horse poo and eat it, at least I'm assuming you're not. Your dog will. Dog's not going to jump on Google and Google animal communication. One of my cats once said to me, murdering birdies is good for my stress levels. You should try it sometime. Murdering birdies wasn't going to do anything for my stress levels. Drinking coffee wasn't going to do anything for the cat. And everything is within species. You can't blame a dog for being a dog any more than if a horse gets a fright, it's going to shy or bolt, because that's what horses do. And the biggest problem is people that consider themselves animal communicators that have no species awareness. I remember one lady, and look, she was a human psychologist, she was very good, but she'd been speaking to these people with this very, very troubled dog. And they told me what they were doing, and I just went, no, that's crap. You actually do the complete opposite. And within 5 minutes, that dog was lying down. It hadn't laid down for 3 weeks, because the signals they were giving to the dog was actually upsetting the dog. When you understand the species, you understand how to change your signals, because any animal's like a computer. They can only go by the information you're giving. And you're giving any animal information 24/7, 365. The problem is we're not aware of the information we're giving because we can only see things from our species parameters. My computer guy puts it really well. He says it's like giving Mac commands to a Windows computer and going, why isn't this working? They're two different operating systems. A cat and a dog and a human have 3 different operating systems, and then add that to every species.
So could you please give our viewers some advice on communicating with their animals? Are there any general things to look out for?
Start with someone else's, because you're too close to your own. In the same way, a doctor doesn't treat their own children, or a clairvoyant doesn't generally read. You need to know you're able to communicate, and you know your own too well. You can't detach what is you from what is them. And also you need feedback. You need to know whether you're on the right trail. I mean, having said that, sometimes you'll get something that's just so weird you couldn't possibly have thought it up, and that's when you know it's coming from the animal. But most of the time, practice on others and get others to practice on yours, and start with it that way. Because it's like, a kid's not often going to tell his mum what's going on, but he'll tell a third party. It's exactly the same. So work with that to start with and build up the relationship and the rapport from there.
When you say practice, like what sort of things would you do, say, with a friend's dog? What would you observe?
They might, for example, say, all right, here's a list of 4 questions. See what answers you get. And that's a good one for you. But they need to be answers that the owners know. For example, dogs in shelters. Any dog in a shelter will tell you anything it needs to get out of there rather than being euthanized. But also people like to get stuck in the past and, it's because he was a shelter dog till he was 6 months old. Well, yeah, you've had him 12 years and he's still a brat. What's your excuse? People like to keep their animals in victim mode, but they can't know what's gone on. So there's no point in asking what happened while you're in the shelter, or how many homes or whatever have you had before, when you're starting to learn, if the owner can't validate that, because they need to be questions that the owner 100% knows.
So that's you asking in English the dog a question.
Yeah, you might give me a list of 4 questions, and it might be, what does Fido like to eat? Where does he like to go? Some of his favourite activities. And then I'll take a photo and tune in, write down the answers and give them to you. And you can go, those 2 are right. No idea why you said that. I'll try feeding it to him, see whether he likes it or not, and get back to you. Because you need to know you're on the right path. And it's like a muscle. You don't use it, you lose it. But start with little bits, because you don't go out and run a marathon. As Tuvok used to say, you don't get out of a wheelchair and do advanced aerobics. You don't run a marathon to start with. Little bits and build up. And that's the thing. If I said to you, we're going to learn ancient Egyptian or Latin, no one's going to expect to be fluent in a day, and using the Egyptian, go in and read Tut's tomb. And yet everybody expects to be able to communicate fluently and instantaneously within a day. And sadly, for 99.99% of the population, it takes work. but the rewards are always worth it.
Well, that is fascinating. Thank you so much, Caroline.
You're very welcome.
If you want to know more about Caroline Pope and language and communication with animals, please go to her webpage on our website at healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and we'll be right back after this break with another amazing guest.
Stay tuned. After the break, psychic medium and author Anthony Kilner will be talking about the differences between physical and metaphysical life experiences. Welcome back. Our next guest, Anthony Kilner, is a psychic medium and author, and the topic we'll be discussing is what are the differences between physical and metaphysical life experiences. Welcome, Anthony.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks for having me here again.
So what is the difference between the two?
Wow, this has got to be my all-time favourite topic. We talk about physical and metaphysical. Physical is objective, it is what it is. You got a pain in your knee, you got a pain in your knee. The metaphysical or the subjective interpretation of what that pain represents, now that becomes more of a challenge and a bit of fun because it'll be subjective, requiring interpretation, so much like a dream. So if we use the left knee as the example, the pain in the knee, you've got a pain, you've bruised it, you've done something, damaged it, it's sore, and that's what it is. You go and see your doctor and you get it fixed. However, if you took notice of it and how it happened, then that's going to give you an understanding that maybe things from your past you're not being very flexible about letting go, and so the knee represents flexibility in your direction, so that then means you're not being flexible in your direction because past things are holding you back. And the knock or the bruise or the damage as a result of taking note of that is to make you really aware of that interpretation. If it was the right knee though, and you had the same pain and the same, oh my gosh, I've got a pain in my knee, what's that? It's about not being flexible moving forward. And while they sound very similar, one is the past holding you back, one is a fear stopping you from moving forward, so you're not being as flexible in your direction as possible. So that interpretation applies to your whole physical body. All right, so if we look at the hand, for example, it does, the left is past, the little finger represents children, the ring finger, relationships, the index finger, sexuality, then we have our pointer, that is you controlling the situation, thumb represents you're under the thumb. So if you get a pain in your thumb and you might think, oh, why am I getting that? And it's on the left side, you might feel that you're being put under the thumb by someone who's trying to control you. All right? Now, as we're sitting here, we can hear it, audience might not, is there's a siren going off in the background. So when we're talking about things and you notice the siren going off, then that's a warning sign for you to be more aware of what's happening around you, to maybe not say what you're about to say, those sorts of things. So the universe actually helps create all these messages that are subjective or metaphysical, subjective, and require interpretation. And it all's based around what you do. So then we have, like I said, eyes represent how you see. So left eye is how you see the past, right eye is how you see the future. All right? When you get stressed, most people carry stress and burdens in our shoulders. Feeling a pain in the middle of your back is like somebody stabbing you in the back, and you might get that while you're thinking of somebody and you'll just go, oh wow, that pain feels really intense, and that's how it comes across. So there's all these different things from the universe. Your house represents things, so you know, a blocked toilet is, you know, you have to get a plumber in to fix it. It could then also represent that you're holding on to too much of your rubbish and you need somebody to help you to let it go.
What can we learn from our everyday life experiences?
Best thing in understanding all of this is don't go looking for it. Everyday experiences occur because the universe is trying to get us messages, right? Different from dreams. The universe is providing that. And so if we notice something, we interpret it. The multitude of experiences, you can put it out there, and I did this when I was living in India. it was every morning I would say to the spirit world and to the universe, as part of my morning ritual, okay, so give me a sign as I walk along my path on the side of the hill that what happens there will mean or say make sense of what my day is going to be like. And so some days I'd walk out and there'd be a dog sitting there and it'd come up and have a pat, and the dog represents loyalty. Right? The colours of the dog would then be, if it was black and white, it'd be like finding balance in loyalty. Right? Other days there'd be a butterfly come out of nowhere and just sort of either land on me or hover in front of my face. And again, that means there's transition occurring in that day. Walk out and there's a cow blocking the path. Now, in the Indian culture, cows are sacred. So then there's a sacredness to my journey, and I have to maybe find a way around that without disturbing it, but learn more. So all those things come into play. And in our daily lives, problems with cars. So, you get a flat tyre, and say it's a flat tyre on the right rear, and it's a front-wheel drive car. All right, so we're mashing it all up because, ex-mechanic, I can talk about these quite well. Most people understand a car. So right rear wheel, it's not a drive wheel, so there's something that's stopping you for a moment, that's dragging you back, right, to stop in your direction and think about where you're going and what you're doing. And that then, you fix the tyre and you get moving again, but you need that breather to understand what's happening in that space. Why can't you move forward? And that's what the universe provides. And water leaks are the same. Water represents emotions. So if you've got a water leak in your car and it's a radiator, there's something explosive happening. There's frustration, there's anger, there's hot, there's steam. All those things come into it. So if you interpret it, you might say, well, in your direction, what's stopping you from living a happy life and being nice and relaxed and calm in your direction? Why are you getting frustrated and angry and hot under the collar, so to speak? So all of those things are important, and the universe provides a plethora of that. So the understanding is to embrace it in your everyday life, is to just learn and take note of what's actually happening in that space. What does it mean? Absorb it and just move on.
Do you have any suggestions for our viewers in their own journey in discovering the difference in their own lives with the physical and metaphysical?
Yeah, my big suggestion first off is journal. Write everything down. So if it grabs your attention, write it down. It's super important, because then you don't have to think about it later, you can just interpret it. A good dream interpretation book is good as well, because interpretations for dream and subjective are very similar. Also, finding someone that can help you to interpret it if you're not sure. And that's really important. And I find sitting circle, which is, the spiritual aspect of learning all of this stuff, your body doesn't lie. Your body tells you what's going on. You've just got to pay attention to it. In a good circle, you'll learn that as well.
Thanks, Anthony. That's such rich information. If you'd like to know more about Anthony Kilner and the difference between the physical and the metaphysical life experience, please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And that's all for us today, and we'll say bye-bye for now and see you next week. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.